Society's history evening. All right, thank you for being with us. My name is David Armenti. I'm a board member with Baltimore City Historical Society, and we're really pleased to have a local legend with us here this evening. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Ashley Minner Jones, to introduce and tell us a bit more about what we're going to learn this evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody, for being with us this evening. My name is Dr. Ashley Minner Jones, and this is the final Baltimore City History Evening event of the season featuring Dr. Joyce J. Scott. We'd like to thank our membership, fellow board members, Goya Contemporary for assistance with promotion of this event, and our sponsors Trace Architects and Inheritance Baltimore, the Billie Holiday Liberation Project. This evening's talk is being recorded. We encourage you to either put your questions in the chat or save until the end for us to share. And let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Joyce J. Scott, who was born in 1948 in Baltimore, Maryland. She is a MacArthur Fellow. She works across the spectrum of media, captivating viewers with beauty, horror, and humor while confronting racism, sexism, complex family dynamics, and injustices. Best known for her use of beads and glass, Scott has challenged the hierarchies of art and craft over the course of 5 decades. Scott earned a BFA at Maryland Institute College of Art and an MFA at Instituto Allende in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, the recipient of countless commissions, grants, residencies, and prestigious honors from institutions such as the National Endowment for the Arts, Louis Comfort Tiffany Foundation, Anonymous Was a Woman, the National Academy of Design, the Smithsonian Institution, and others. Scott has been awarded honorary doctorates from Johns Hopkins University, California College of the Arts, and the Maryland Institute College of Art. The artist has exhibited in museums worldwide with works included in most major public collections: the Baltimore Museum of Art, Brooklyn Museum of Art, Corning Museum of Glass, Metropolitan Museum of Art, Mint Museum of Art, Museum of Art and Design, Museum of Fine Arts Houston, Seattle Art Museum, Toledo Museum of Art, National Museum of American Art, the Smithsonian Institution, the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, and the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Scott is represented worldwide by Goya Contemporary Gallery in Sculpture, Mobilia Gallery in Jewelry, and she recently opened a major 50-year traveling museum retrospective in 2024, which is co-organized by the Baltimore Museum of Art and the Seattle Art Museum, and it's still on view at the BMA if you have the opportunity to visit. And tonight, Dr. Scott's presentation is entitled Introspection, and I will hand it over to her. Take it away, Auntie Joyce.
I'm not scared of dying, and I don't really care. If it's peace you find in dying, well, then let my time be near. If it's peace you find in dying, and then let my time be near. Then bundle up my coffin, 'cause it's cold way down there. And when I die, and when I'm gone, there'll be one child born left to carry on. Hi, everybody. Ashley, put the image up, please, the first one. My name is Joyce J. Scott, and I'm carrying the tradition of the Scott Caldwell families in the visual and performing arts. Firstly, thank you for asking me to be here tonight. I am very honored, and also very honored to see beautiful David's face. I should see handsome because he's a guy. I don't want any trouble. And my Snookums baby, Ashley Min. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my artwork and about my practice as an artist. My mother, Elizabeth Caldwell Talford Scott, just had an exhibition that came down at the Baltimore Museum of Art the same. My parents, Charlie Scott Jr. and Elizabeth Talford Scott, both came from North and South Carolina. On that Freedom Road, you know, in the 30s, they were looking for a smidge, not even complete freedom, just a bit more freedom than what they had in the Carolinas, and the real possibility of better jobs. My father was a crane operator here at Bethlehem Steel, and my mother worked many, many different jobs as a housekeeper, a nanny, you name it. And then they had me, someone who loved art. When people ask me, I tell everybody that I was a baby in utero. I was an artist baby in utero because my mother comes from many, many generations of crafts, of visual and performing arts, and of rascals and tricksters. My dad, too. The piece that's up now is a very, very large beaded piece that's at the Baltimore Museum of Art in my retrospective Walk a Mile in My Dreams. Now, that title originally came from a one-person performance I did called Walk a Mile in My Drawers, but I don't know what the audience is like, so don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. This is a around 8-foot large beaded piece made out of large plastic pony beads. I made this one in deference to the beadwork that I've learned from everyone. In 1976, I went to Haystack Mountain School of Arts again, and this time I learned the peyote stitch from Sandy Fife. Sandy Fife is also a Cherokee. I think she's a Creek. And I was supposed to be learning something else, but she said all the students knew all that other stuff, so she taught us the peyote stitch. Now, I've been doing beadwork for many, many years, but my mother taught me when I was 5, but she taught me how to embroider beads. And, you know, I did the ubiquitous American Indian loom in Girl Scouts, but the peyote stitch allows me to be my improvisational self. I've done many, many things, clay, weaving, you know it, but it occurred to me as an ex-hippie, a flower child, that I really wanted to deal with translucency, and dealing with beads allowed me to do that. It also allowed me to use an ancient technique. I mean, you know, when they opened up tombs, they found King Tut. You know, his clothing went away, but he had a nice little necklace. Everybody had jewelry. So it allowed me to use this antique form. It also allowed me to defy the ideas that people had about artists, African-American women being rotten at math, because beadwork is just math. It's also for you painters, pointillism. It's just a way to deal with color, light, and form improvisationally, immediately, without having to have drawings unless I have assistants who are working with me. Next, the other thing that I did a lot of is paperwork. You know, I went to undergraduate school thinking that I was going to be a painter, and I was disabused of that immediately in 1966. I always thought I'd be a teacher, but I never thought that I'd have to study it. My undergraduate degree is in education. After being a student teacher, I realized that I'd be a 700-pound alcoholic if I remained in the public school system. So I did what every self-respecting hippie did. I ran off to Mexico and got my master's degree. I never stopped painting or doing what I thought was wet work. This is handmade paper that has beadwork added. I am talking so fast, I'm not pronouncing words properly, so I'm going to slow down. Doing paperwork, handmade paperwork this way was perfect for a person like me. I could do wet work. I didn't have to worry about drawings. I could make a mess. And because I was in someone else's studio, I could pay them to clean it up. Ha! It also allowed me to challenge the ideas about what classic and classical and conservative paperworking is. So this piece and the other has sequins and beads, and I'm adding and subtracting and doing something more than the original geometry of a square or a rectangle. Challenging those views in my artwork is in many ways the way I challenge the views of life. I don't think that I have to be mired in rules that don't do things that help me evolve into a better purpose and to a better person. So I'm always challenging myself as an artist. Next, I'm always making myself see something different in my materials and my work. This is a large beadwork piece. It's probably around, I think, 5.5, 6 feet long, made out of tiny seed beads. It's about the Middle Passage to Africa, and it tells a lot of stories, a lot of pictures of humans and all kinds of subtle things with white beads next to clear beads next to white beads. I found beadwork to be the medium, my métier, the thing that would allow me to be the most poetic, the most minuscule and grandiose, that I could apply my trickster personality to by embedding sly kinds of synthesizing. See, I have a gap, so that one was a hard one for me. Synthesizing. I could do layering. I could do kind of suave and strange and quiet blending of colors and tones, as well as be bombastic. Once again, challenging the idea that beadwork is only for jewelry, or that it's only to be a certain size to be appreciated. Next. Another paper piece where I'm embedding photographs as well as paper. I'm mixing around with lyricism and music because I'm also a musician, a singer, and a theater person. And I like to apply the same ideas about movement and sound in the artwork. Next. Another wall piece. I like to do abstract work that doesn't necessarily have any kind of figures or meaning besides beauty. I like luxuriating in beauty, and I like my viewer to look at it and be amazed that a human being just did that. Yeah, I know that makes my ego sound big, and it is in a sense because I'm doing this work because people died to allow me my place as an artist. When I talk about my work being politically and socially oriented, it really comes from those roots. It comes from my grandparents, my parents, those before me who were sharecroppers, picking tobacco and picking cotton and different vegetables, and having no ability to have the academic education that I have. In fact, both my parents went to one-room schoolhouses when they weren't picking. They came up north not only for themselves, but for the future of their kids yet to come. And for me, it was just the sweet time, the sweet point in history right after the Second World War, where the world was trying to reclaim itself. Although Black people were not getting the rights and freedoms they deserved, it was one tiny more step. And I could walk to my elementary school. I went all the way through senior high school and college, learning new things. And at that time, art was respected. So there was music and all kinds of art classes in school. And that was reiterated at home from my mother. Next. More paper. Next. This is another really large wall hanging. It's around 8 or 9 feet tall. The first one I did. This one is for Harriet Tubman. I did an exhibition at Grounds for Sculpture in New Jersey called Harriet Tubman and Other Truths. I think my mom and Harriet Tubman must be cousins via the centuries. They were both not 5 feet tall. They were dark-skinned. They were righteous in their steps to freedom and for the next generation. And my mom left the South, the deep South, to come to the up South to have a better life. She also was one of the moms of her community, like Harriet Tubman. And they were righteous. They taught me to stand up, to be solid in my stance with these two medium-sized feet. Next. Another paper piece. I use skeletons a lot because I was raised in the Pentecostal apostolic faith. When my godfather, who was a preacher, saw me being obstreperous in the congregation, he just picked me up and preached with me in his arms. I actually did street ministry. No, I wasn't preaching. I played the tambourine. They said I was so cute, I got them extra donations. When I went to Mexico, and there was so much use of skeletons and discussions on the Day of the Dead. And also I was told in church that death is not the end, but a transition, a door opening, i.e. the Day of the Dead. I started to use skeletons a lot in my artwork. Next. I kept doing glass. You know, when I was really young, I would do just industrial glass of mayonnaise or pickle jar. But in 1974, I went to Haystack Mountain School of Crafts and really did scholarship work there and wandered into the glass studio. And I thought, uh-oh. So as I did residency after residency in different places, I kept going into the glass studio until I, in fact, started working with glass artists. This piece was made at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. Well, they asked me to come up and teach a jewelry class or crit jewelry, one of the two. And they told me how much they would pay me. And I said, no. Well, that's all we got. I said, if you will, give me a day in the glass studio with students, and send my work home, pay for it, I'll do it. And I did. One of the things that I've always been taught by the mentors who've taken care of me and my family is that you must pay forward, you must open the door, you must show that there's a future for all and that African Americans are in that future. So when I go to many universities, I realize that the art teachers are taught by the same art teachers from the same art books. And many times people like me or people who do work that is as non-conventional as myself aren't even discussed always. That's changed a lot now from when I was doing a lot of this crit work. So while I was there, I used yellow glass. They weren't using that. I talked about fusing beadwork with glass. They weren't doing that. And I talked about applying beads afterwards, which they weren't doing. So this piece of sculpture talks about using all of those techniques, not only in my artwork, but as me as a teacher. Next. And Ashley, you're going to have to do a time check because everybody can see in the audience that I can just keep on rambling. We're getting to my later stuff. You know, when I talk about social and political work, it crosses the boundaries of ethnicity and gender. This red monkey has just saved 2 African albino kids who would have been slain. There are around 6 countries in the probably southeastern part of Africa that harvest from African albinos. You might be coming home from work and they assault you and take your arms. And if somebody finds you by the road, you live, but you don't have arms. Babies are taken and those body parts or humans are used in ceremonies and rituals that I cannot tell you about. I'm like, how does an ethnic group look at another person who's just a different color, looks just like them, but not know they're human and ravage them? And then I thought about the world in which we live and how that's what's happened forever. So this artwork echoes back to what's happening all over the world, whether it's the same ethnic group as you or the same human species. This is a very large piece. And the kids are very white. And the monkey, once again, is the trickster. And written on his back are the names of the countries in the continent of Africa that were guilty of this. Next. Here's the second one of those pieces. You know, I've been reading about this for years and doing work on albinism, the death of these children and humans for years. But I read that a young 9-year-old boy was killed. They found the murderers and they took them to trial, and that generally didn't happen. So this piece is an homage to him. There's a lady all dressed up for market. She's got her child, a Black child, with her, and carrying in the basket on her head are the chopped parts of that little boy. When I think about you looking at my work, I want you to be mesmerized by my technique and my materials. I want you to go, oh, I tell, oh. Next. Mixing glass. Also, the pedestal is a mosaic of glasswork and beadwork. So I'm using my beadwork as if they are tiles. Next. This is an in-process sculpture suite. These are bullets that are covered with beadwork with the initial of people who have been shot by police. The butterflies for someone who was not shot, but who was either strangled or in some way killed by police without a bullet. I made this maybe 5 years ago or 7 years ago. I worked and moved on to other things, but there've been so many people who have in fact lost their lives that I have to go and cover once again. The wall hanging, and you see that these pieces are meant to be painting or drawing with beads. I try never to subjugate or to lower the quality of my artship, my craftsmanship for the context or the content of the work. So if it's something that's horrible, I still want my mastery of my technique to show. I still want the beauty to show in the work, because that's the other way I get you to look at it. Next. Another wall hanging. This is a large one. Next. I like to make dimensional things, and I'm pressing myself always to make something different. This is a newer piece. So there's this monkey, the face is really well done, but then there's a figure like a line drawing popping out of them. And I thought, well, I don't know whether this goes on the floor, on a pedestal, or on the wall. I guess we'll just figure it out. Monkeys appear a lot because of their trickster personality and because they are our ancestors. Next. In 2011, my mother passed away. I also went to New Orleans for Prospect 2 and had a large exhibition. And that was the first year I went to Venice, actually to the island of Murano, the Baringo studio where I was an artist in residence and started working with Italian glass artists who were blowing and crafting artwork for me. The face on this figure is my beadwork that's been fused. She's got cornrow hair, and all of the figures, the golden figures on the bottom, are my beadwork. There's something wonderful about going to another country and showing them what you do and have them say no, and then change their point of view. Next. This was also done another year there. I did a whole series of Buddhas. This is a large Buddha. They represent different seasons. I think this is Buddha representing fall, winter. My beadwork is the red face. I drew a picture of a black boy on the leg. When the owner of the studio came in and he saw me drawing on the glass, he said, "I cannot even leave you for a second." Next. When I told you about the Grounds for Sculpture show, Grounds for Sculpture is actually a sculpture park that also has galleries. This is Harriet Tubman, my 10-foot Harriet Tubman. She's made out of styrofoam, but covered with paint and metal and beadwork. Those quilts are quilt tops that were made by my father's mother in North Carolina. You know, quilts were important for runaway slaves because they are hallmarks. They're left on clotheslines and on fences, and the designs on them would tell people to stop or it's not safe to go on. And really in the back is a really big figure who's a hank, and a hank is a ghost. And sometimes ghosts were more tricksters. They tell you where to go and how to move on. Next. Yell at me, Ashley, when I've overdone it. This
Joyce,
piece is
Joyce, maybe 3 or 4 more?
okay, great. Thank you, my love. This is one of my really recent pieces, and I think it's called The Collector. So there she is. She's got on her red bottoms, a Louis Vuitton. She's sitting there with a designer purse. Next to her feet is a bottle of champagne, and she's sitting next to the artwork that she bought on the wall. And the artwork is painted and fused in collage glass that I made here somewhere. I want you to know that if people will give me the opportunity, I'll use it. So I had a friend whose school was fusing glass. It was a high school, I think. It's been years. And so she let me come and fuse and paint glass. I would work with the students maybe, and then I'd stay and make my own. And sometimes I make so much, it may take me years and years to finish using them. Next. Another large wall hanging. Sometimes and these are the very small beads. They're called size 11 and 12 beads. Sometimes the beads are so mesmerizing because now in the 21st century, we have beads that look like everything, shaped like everything, every size. That just alone to work with them is a magical feeling. And to then see them on the wall and they have the capacity to make someone smile or be enthralled. This is really great for the artist, but it's also really great for the bead makers. Next. This is another thing about slavery. You know, many times dead slaves were just thrown overboard or people would jump overboard. Their bodies are strewn, their skeletons are strewn on the bottom of the sea. Some people believe that they fly away home. This is a smaller piece. I think of many of them as scrolls. And that ship is one of the human cargo ships. Yes, next. This yellow person. I think she's a little awkward. The body, this person is like me. She needs to be in the gym for a really long time. Sometimes I just make things because I like to play. The tummy is filled with guns. That worm snake is holding guns. There are guns on the top of the head. I don't know what this means. I just knew I had to do it. Next. Let's make this one the last. Of course, I use guns a lot because of the violence that happens all around the world, but in Baltimore specifically in inner cities. Of course, in Maryland, we have lots of guns, but I live downtown. I made this piece in Venice, and this piece is not only about sexual objectification, but it's about the sale of human beings. That woman is tied to that rifle because she is being sold. Just the meaning of that. That's a really tall piece. I think it's around 6 feet tall. But also the way that it was made in the glass studio, all of glass. And how my making it, my touching it, and the people who made it understood my feelings about it, about the history of it, and especially in Europe where there are many immigrants entering now. And so while they were making it, I had to have an interpreter, but we talked about that kind of thing. And I know that imbued their power, that gave them a different kind of prowess in the making of the piece. I hope I've given you some ideas about what I do. So you want to ask me a couple of questions? You want to start? Yeah, isn't she pretty? David's also good looking, but I just met him. But I know this girl before she had that little baby who I do not trust. How old is she?
She'll be 2 in July.
I don't trust her. She's 2 years old. I already know that she's a rascal.
Oh, Auntie Joyce, that was
Yeah,
amazing. It's such an honor and a privilege to host you on behalf of the Baltimore City Historical Society.
thank you.
I encourage everyone to send their questions via chat, but I'm going to be selfish and kick it off because I want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be from Baltimore?
Well, Baltimore is up south. So for me, it is someone who is just saturated not only with the wonderfulness of this state and this city, which was very important in the civil rights movement, and also had a large population of freed African Americans. This is where the civil rights started, right in our inner harbor. This is where Frederick Douglass is from. This is a city that Harriet Tubman probably traipsed through, and other people of great import. I'm proud to be of this city. And I'm proud to be of a city that still cradles the South, because there are many people from the South who are trying to get someplace else and just got stuck here. Or there were people who came who knew they did not have to have even a high school education, but could work at the auto plant or at Bethlehem Steel or someplace else. And they had autonomy and a smidge more freedom than they had from whence they came. So to be in that rabble and to be in a city that's so filthy with artists, you can't throw a stone when you don't hit an artist on the head out. That means there's creativity. That means there's something going on all the time. And I love that. There are people like you there, you rascal.
Um, Auntie Joyce, more specifically, your neighborhood that you live in, that you have decided you're going to stay in, and
Mhm.
you could go anywhere you want to. Will you talk about where you live and why?
Sure. I live in Upton. I was raised in Sandtown. I'm around the way, girl. I live in Upton off North and Pennsylvania Avenues. And it is a challenged area. Supposedly that's where the best drug in Baltimore City are. So we get people just traipsing around all the time. I'm not scared of my peeps. I remember when I was a kid, before integration was easier, everybody lived in the same community. So your dentist was in the community, not so far away. Teachers were around, the preacher lived. You saw hope. There was the ability that there was something for you other than the folks you saw on the street. And I know that my block has people. There's a preacher who lives here, and there's a guy who has a lot of houses. And he said, Joyce, I'm sure an artist. He puts art in all of his buildings when people pass by. We know it is of great import to stay in communities where kids are walking around to show them that there are options. Just being many times is enough. I don't have to be out on the street heralding how wonderful it is to be an artist and to have an education. I can just be. That's a big deal.
Um, Auntie Joyce, other people have questions for you.
Finally.
Uh, Janet Felston says, wonderful talk and exhibit. Can you say more about your process? Do you start with a theme, just with the materials and improvisation?
Well, generally, I start with something. So I like just messing around in the studio. Let me get a piece. I've been working on this piece for more than a year, and it's really small beats. And I'm working on it between other projects. I don't have a drawing for it. I just know every time I come close to it, I want to do it. Sometimes I might have one piece and I can't conquer all my demons. I can't make everything that I want to say happen. And that's how series become. So sometimes I just keep working off a series. And the show at the Baltimore Museum of Art has worked that our series. Um, there's one series called Still Funny, and it's about the things that we that are racially charged now. Will they always be that? There's a lynching series. There's a series on being a nanny and a mammy. So that's what happens. I just keep going. And I only generally do drawings if I'm working with someone that I just can't show with my hands, excuse me, or I'm using a material that costs a lot of money and I just can't be playing with it because I can't afford to do 80 mistakes. Now, when I say mistakes, I mean opportunities. I mean, I learned from that, but maybe that's not what I can still use on this piece. So sometimes I have to draw things out, but generally I just go for it because I am that skilled. I'm that good. Now, when you hear me talk about myself that way, you're like this. Ain't she full of herself? Well, Miss Dr. Scott. Yes, I am. But only because people died for me to have this skill. It's my responsibility as an artist to keep learning and do it. Because there were people who had 3 times more skill, who were geniuses, who were not able to do it. And so they made this walk for me. So it's my responsibility to be able to be good, the best at what I do. Yes. Who else?
We have one from Heather. She asks, what does your stash of materials look like? Are you meticulous in organizing it, or do you just know what is where when you need it? Do you have a very Baltimore material that you've used or introduced into a piece? A found object, for example?
Heather, have you been to my house? Is this somebody you can felonious name? Because anybody who's been here, especially since for the last 3 years doing this show, and I want you to know I have another traveling show called Messages that came from my gallery in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Mobilia, and it's running now too. So during COVID and for the last 3 years, I've just been a fool working. I haven't put anything away. So before that, I was sort of on the mark. You know, I have all the plastic containers and I can look into them. And I have a lot of workspace so I can spread out. But now it's just hell. I kind of know where things are, but I have so many materials, it's not true. You know, my mom used to have me pick up rocks for her. I had to carry the rocks around. I have different things that I've made with in workshops that are very Baltimore workshops that I still inculcate, I still insinuate in my work. Sometimes, though, I think it's less materials. I put a pin to hold my blouse together and it just stabbed me. I know you did not ask that, but I thought you would like to know. Ouch. It's more the intrinsic feelings that I am having that I instigate in my work than materials because my materials are global.
All right. We have one from Sharon. After completing your amazing retrospective, what are some of the things that you want to accomplish next?
Liposuction. That's a joke. I hope you're laughing at home. That's the one thing I dislike about Zoom because I don't know what you're doing. You may not know that I was a comedian for years. So I'm just having the best time, and you're like this. Um, ask me that question again.
Sharon asks, after completing your amazing retrospective, what are some of the things you want to accomplish next?
Rest, and that's true because this has been a profound exhibition. It's gotten a lot of press, which means a lot of folks have come into town to see it, which means I go to the museum and I'm with them. And because we have the weaving room at the end, I've been there helping a bit. It's all very miraculous. I'll do some travel and I'll never stop working. What I want to do is actually maybe after I have some projects, because this show goes to Seattle and I'll have to go to Seattle and maybe do some work in California. I'd like to use the rest of 25 just to make artwork and sit around and look at the cellulite on my thighs. But I'd really just like to have some clearing time to enter into the next frontier that I'm going to do with my work. Because I tell you, when you do an exhibition like this, all of a sudden you're like this, what? and start thinking about the things that you can do. I'm 75, so I just can't jerk around, folks. Who knows how much longer I have to live or when I'm going to be incarcerated. Consequently, I have to work. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I say to people, I shall not be denied. And I say that because my mom said that to me. That's why I say she's like Harriet Tubman. They wouldn't be denied. They had little, so they made something out of nothing. I have a lot, but that doesn't mean I don't have many, many other dreams and ideas and roads to walk down and conquer. So I don't even know what I'm going to be up to. But I'm going to be up to something. Oh, and I'm thinking maybe going back to doing some more performing. You know, I've been a singer for years, and I lost my voice for like around 6 months. It came back, but it's not the same voice. And I'm thinking, well, you ought to be working this. You're 75, you're a good looking old woman. You could give that kind of old soul thing. Somebody else. Because you're in the people in the audience are like this now. Is she on medication? Does
Kenny,
she need medication?
have you ever had periods of silence where you are blocked or unable to work?
Person said periods of silence, which means I'm talking too much. I've had seldom am I blocked because I have so many mediums that I can go to. So I may not know what to do with beadworks, but I'll do paper. I may not, I'll weave or I'll write a song or a poem. I'll do something. But I have had that blocking. And I work generally by myself. I don't have assistants most of the time. So I am quiet on my own. And it's a really great spiritual journey to be able to create. People, when you talk about being a creative, folks sometimes think that's just, a hippie word and kumbaya. There's something pretty fabulous about being able to summons all those things that came to you naturally and all those other things you've learned and the things that were whispered to you by your friends and by your family and by those who came before them and manifest them into something physical. And then when you're good at it and people don't necessarily like it, love it, but they want to see it, because I don't think everybody loves what I do, foolish people, but they want to see it. That's an enormous a power to have, and it's a power that is good. It's not like I'm using it to rule the world. It's like it makes me want to do more and stretch myself as an artist more.
I was curious about that one too.
Okay.
From Mary, and we have some more lovely compliments in the chat, but I'm focusing on questions. From Mary, Dr. Scott, thank you so much for all you shared with us. It's an honor to hear you discuss your fabulous pieces. My question is, how do we ensure that our youth, toddlers through teenagers, be exposed to and can make art on a regular and meaningful basis?
That question has been asked for many years. Of course, one way is to have art in school, have meaningful art in school, not handing out designs and telling them to color them, but having meaningful art in school. Art classes, art, music, literature, theater. Another way, and this was a movement for a while, is to use art as one of the techniques for teaching. So beadwork is math. So it can be a problem or a project that they can use to learn how to count. For young kids, art is color, it's form, it's all those things that you can use to teach with. And when you work, think about music or theater. And when you're in theater, then you've got props and sets and costumes, and as well as the spoken word and hair. If we could teach other classes, we might really find that it would help our students remain connected, because when you start reading things, you'll read that a lot of scientists and a lot of doctors are painters or writers on the side. They do things because that creative formula helps them with their everyday self. That means that parents have to go into schools, the PTA, and they have to go to meetings and they have to talk to their councilmen and all of that other stuff about making true art forms in class. They have to go to Bureau of Recreation and say, we want more than basketball. We want to bring back arts to recreation centers. We have to make real ways for art to be taken care of with kids. And it's one of the things that we have to sacrifice and pay for ourselves many times, which means then you maybe get an artist to do an after school class that the school doesn't have money to pay for, but the PTA gets together and sells cookies or whatever they do so that students will have some contact with the arts. Wait, there's one other thing. Also the use of technology, because computers have all kinds of ways besides AI to do art that can facilitate folks. And since that's where many kids are, then you go to where they are and help them evolve.
Allison comments, STEAM with a lot of exclamation points. That's science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics.
Yes.
Francis says, thank you for your incredibly engaging and moving work. With the fine beadwork you do and the large pieces you create, do you do anything in particular to take care of your hands?
I use this Valporin, Valentine, whatever the heck that is. I have a finger guard. I use one of these for my shoulders. I have a wrist guard. This time I overworked so much that my body started laughing at me. It's like, you think you're actually going to bend? Watch this. So what I've tried to do is rest. That is why I have assistance this time, because I could have made this giant piece you saw, been up all night and everything, and just killed myself. But I've allowed myself to receive help from others. And at the same time, then I'm a mentor and they are a mentee. We were talking about that today, about approaches to the work that they are doing that they would not have done unless they were working with me. So that's great. I've tried to realize that I'm not that 57-year-old gorgeous, fabulous girl, tits up, that I'm now 75 years old and I could give myself a break. So I'm trying to slow down a bit. And when my hands say stop, I'm trying to stop. And realize that the world will keep moving if I don't finish that piece today. I sort of don't believe that, but I'm trying.
Jennifer says, I have been inspired by your first show at the BMA, and Baltimore is so lucky to be able to see this amazing exhibition. Are you going to be there Sunday?
This coming Sunday?
I would expect so.
No, I don't think I'm going to be there Sunday, this coming Sunday. But what I'd like everybody to know is that on July the 14th, which is the last day of my exhibition, I will be doing a concert. I don't think it's open now, but you'll have to register for it to get in. And if you haven't bought my mom's catalog, my catalog from Messages, or the catalog from the exhibition, you should buy it, because I will also be signing catalogs. And who knows, this might, you could sell it for a lot of money in the future. I am a MacArthur,
Wow, we have just a few more minutes. I wonder if anybody else wants to chat a question, and I will jump in again and ask Auntie Joyce, what is an event in Baltimore City history that you think more people should know about and talk about today?
God, now you're asking about memories, which I don't know if I'm so good at. I think people should know, unless I'm really wrong about this, but I don't think I am, that Artscape started from the city fair when there was still doing it like on the wharfs before Harbor Place and Harbor, all of that happened, and in Fells Point. And it was really the beginning of a fair where artists and performers got together. And I had a little table and showed my artwork. And from that grew the largest arts festival in the United States. I say that to you because with all the things that are said about Baltimore, that's a great example of how when we work together for the arts, good things can happen. I think Kenny Collins has something to say before we're done. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. Kenny comments, I first saw you with your mother in the 80s at the Howard County Library. You sang a duet of God Save the Child. No particular question, but I wanted to let you know that you gave me a huge gift and my mother had just died.
Thank you. Thank you. My mom passed in 2011 at 95. I was sure she was going to crack 100. And I know that feeling of when someone shows you and chose that moment for you, how it really sets you free. I'd like to end with something that came from my mom, okay?
Okay.
And it's it's a suggestion for everyone. I'm going to move that plastic bloody bag, okay? I told you that my parents came from the Carolinas. They were told to hide their light. My mom said, never hide your light. The old Southern term is under a bushel. Don't hide your light under a bushel. My mother said, don't ever hide your light under a bushel. You should shine. You should glow. Now, they had to because of their lack of academic education, because of their skin tone, and because of the abuse of power around them. But in the year 2024, I shall not be denied. And I don't mean like the giant things like I'm, going to be the president. I mean, I shall walk in the light and the footsteps of those who made it possible for me. So if y'all can't cop a hit off this light, this glorious, glorious shine, step off. Because this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine, y'all.
Thank you, Auntie Dr. Joyce J. Scott. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody in the audience for your attendance and participation.
Thank you, everybody. Let it shine. You too, David. David is very cute. I see it at the bottom. Thanks. That was amazing. That's fabulous. Goodbye. Are you still there, Ashley?
Hey, Joyce, Dr. Scott, I wrote a note because we met in Kansas City during Open Spaces. In 2018, I have been following you all. Now I live in Northern Virginia, and I'm the woman that offered you an apartment in Berlin.
Oh, wonderful.
And that offer is still open. I think your work is simply amazing and humbling. And if it ever fits in your very busy life, it's there. So there.
You leave your information with Ashley for me.
I think she has my email, and then she can have the rest, and I can also do it through Goya.
Okay, that would be
either
great.
way. I haven't ever lost you, but I haven't been in person. So
thank you. Thank
you
very much.
Heart.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Bye. Bye, Ashley.
I don't know where Ashley is.
Okay.
I'm listening. Take care, everybody.
Bye.